suppression of the Tibetan people. It is to maintain the occupation. So that is why the Tibetan people are suppressed ever since Chinese occupation. And what has come out now is that Tibetans have no way of expressing their religious beliefs, their culture, and their way of life. And the Chinese are gradually, making the Tibetans into Chinese, Sinification, or whatever you call it, Hanification, Chinese Sinification, Chineseization, whatever you call it. The thing is that China wants to make the Tibetans throw away and discard the Tibetan religion, their belief system, their identity, and make each and every Tibetan a Chinese, which is not possible because we Tibetans have our own identity and will never accept Chinese Chinese way of life or Chinese, forcing their way of life upon us. There's a saying, you can take away by force, or you cannot give by force. So we Tibetans will never, ever accept Chinese rule. So today we are here, 54 years after the Chinese occupation, and we Tibetans continue to battle, continue to strive, to fight back against a totalitarian government. And the Tibetans, because of our belief system, we have been non-violent. I will tell you with sincerity, this is not to say that Tibetans are incapable of violence. Every human being is capable of violence. It is much easier to kill others than kill yourself. So today, 107 Tibetans inside Tibet and 3 Tibetans outside Tibet have self-immolated for the cause of Tibet, without hurting, causing injury to a single Chinese. Just imagine if all the 107 Tibetans inside Tibet had bombs strapped to their bodies and blew up Chinese officers and Chinese military personnel. Just imagine the mayhem that would have caused. But so far, thanks to his Dalai Lama's influence, the Tibetans have maintained non-violent struggle against the Chinese. But the Chinese have shown no mercy whatsoever in dealing with the Tibetan people. And they're mercilessly murdering and killing Tibetans, and even Tibetans who are burning and up in flames, they shoot them. They even use batons with spikes on them. And they are thrown into the Chinese police vans and just taken to places where their limbs are cut off, where the Chinese doctors and nurses look down and spit upon the Tibetan self-immolators. So this is how they're treating the Tibetans. That is why, if the Chinese continue to be violent, there is every danger that it can gradually escalate into something different than what we are seeing today. As a student activist from the 1970s, I have never dreamt that Tibetans will take such a step like today. This is entirely new. I used to think that maybe someday Tibetans might take to violence, but I never imagined that Tibetans will burn themselves like this. Now, if you see a person is prepared to burn themselves in such horrific situation, you can imagine they can do anything in future. So therefore, the Chinese leaders, from Xi Jinping and all his colleagues, they have to take note that the Tibetan struggle is not going to go away. Get that in your mind firmly. We will continue to fight. And we Tibetan monks, nuns, Tibetan lay people will make sure that our future is in the hands of our young people who will continue to fight. Because today, those Tibetans, like the minister mentioned, who have burned themselves are not old people. They are mostly young people in the 20s, in the teenage. And there are only few people who are old, or you can say old, in the 60s or 50s. Otherwise, they're all young, who have been brought up in the communist system, who have been brought up under that dreadful red rag, which is called the Chinese flag, where they have been brought up under that flag, and now they are going against the Chinese and saying, we don't want to hear, you want to get out. If you don't do that, we want to burn ourselves. So those Tibetans who have been brought up under the Chinese red flag, they are against the Chinese. It is not the Tibetan exiles and the Dalai Lama who are instigating. It is the Chinese system, the Chinese policies that have failed the Tibetans. That is the main reason why the Tibetans are rising under the Chinese occupation and Chinese misrule. So therefore, the Chinese should not think that somehow you have the military, that you have the money, and that somehow that you can control the whole world. I know that Australia is getting less and less friendly, about talking about human rights. I know I'm an Australian citizen, thank you very much, I'm very happy. But I know that Australian leaders are very, very edgy when it comes to talking about China. And it's the same with India, it's the same with everybody. But you know what? The Chinese money will not stay there forever. Just like the Soviet Union, it will collapse. In a Buddhist system, nothing remains forever. What must go up must come down. And the Communist Party will come down because the British Empire came down, the American Empire is coming down, the Roman Empire came down, and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire came down, and all the empires that came about all disappeared. And the Chinese Empire is no exception to the rule. And I can predict it will come down. And you know what? Xi Jinping has already said recently that unless the Chinese fix the atrocious, the malignant corruption that is eating into the vitals of the Chinese communist system, the Chinese communists will not even survive for 100 years. He said it. He had just said it recently. He said that we will not be able to celebrate the 100th birthday of the Chinese communist system. He said, because there is corruption endemic in the system, and unless we clear that, the Chinese communist system will not last for another 8 years, because the Communist Party was founded in 1921, and in 2021, it will be 100 years. So they have only 8 years to go for 100 years. But you know what? They may not even last that much. We don't know. We don't know. But the Soviet Union lasted for about 70-something years. From 1917, in the Bolshevik Revolution, and in 1991, it was over with Gorbachev. So therefore, the Communist Party, what's happening is that it is a system where it is fearful of its own people. So now today, what they have done is their defense expenditure to defend the country is only $116 billion. But the internal defense, they're spending $124 billion. Now you can see the Communist Party is against the Chinese people. They are fearful of their own people more than they are fearful of outside countries. So you can see that a country which is fearful of its own people has no life. And also we Australians know that fish rots from the top. And the Chinese leadership is rot with corruption. So it's going to come down. I'm not saying it's going to come down in 10 years, 20 years, but it's bound to come down. And Tibetans and Tibetan supporters should never think that somehow that the Chinese have military capabilities and they have a lot of money, that somehow they're they are somehow, you know, they cannot be challenged. The fact is the Soviet Union was exactly the same. They had military, they had the nuclear weapons, but when it came down, none of that was of any use. So there's no difference. So therefore, you see, today what's happening is that the communist system is not changing because it is not reformable. It just can't change. But what's happening is the people are changing. You see? Why? Because as the people get more rich, so it makes them more restive. They want more. And now what happened is that Xi Jinping will face more trouble than Putin thought. That the Chinese people are getting more restive. They want more changes, more democracy, more freedom at least, even if you don't call it democracy. So he will be under great pressure, and for that they'll use more military muscle to clamp down on the people. And in this way, there will be no stability, there will be less and less stability. That's why they're spending $124 billion for internal security and only $116 billion for national security. This shows clearly that the Chinese government is very, very worried about the explosive nature of the Chinese nation. So therefore, the Tibetans should not get discouraged that somehow we're facing a challenge from a demon that cannot be destroyed. We are not here to destroy the Chinese. We have nothing against Chinese. We are friends of the Chinese people. They are looking for democracy and freedom. We are also looking for freedom and democracy. But what we are against is the policy of the Chinese government, nothing against the Chinese people. So therefore, the injustice that the Chinese communists are inflicting upon the Tibetans is inflicted upon the Chinese people as well. You know, the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, when thousands of students were murdered. Even today, the mothers of the Tiananmen students who were murdered, they are seeking justice. But the Chinese government would have none of that. They imprisoned them and they killed them also. So therefore, we are with the Chinese people. We are also fighting for our freedom. We are not against the Chinese people as such. We are fighting for our own country, for the sovereignty of our country, for the freedom of our country. So we are together here. Nobody should think that the Tibetan movement is somehow against Chinese. This is absolutely not true. Now, what's happening is that as China, grows in military might, neighboring nations are getting more edgy and more scared, and this is causing tension in North Asia and in Southeast Asia. So these things are not good for the whole region. So, and also India is also threatened by China, with China supporting militants in Assam called the Alpha, the Border Liberation Movement, and other Nagaland national movement, and also Maoist groups in India. So if Australia and all the democratic-loving countries want India to be a stable democracy, it is important to support the freedom of Tibet, the independence of Tibet, because Tibet acted as a buffer state between China and India for centuries. If Australia wants countries which are democratic as its neighbors, then Australia, for its own interest, must support Tibetan freedom, because if India's democracy is threatened, Australia's democracy is also threatened. That is why what China does is, it is the godfather of all the regimes that the world knows as rogue states. Before it was Burma, North Korea, Iran, and all those countries which the West calls rogue states, like Zimbabwe. So China is the godfather. It supports all of them. And what's happening is that democratic systems, people's right for freedom, they're gradually restricted in these countries as a result of Chinese influence. That is why all those democratic countries, including Australia, if you really believe in the notion that all people should be free, then Australia must support the Tibetan freedom struggle as well for its own interest. So finally, without mentioning too many things, I'll just recite or cite one of the words which Tiananmen Square mother has said, because there's a Tiananmen Square mothers group who are fighting for justice for the sons and daughters which were murdered by the Chinese Communist Party. So she says, that our regime that relies on machine guns and tanks to maintain political power will not be a long-lasting one. So it's very well said, isn't it? Any government, whether it's the Chinese totalitarian government or whoever it is, when they use only guns, machine guns and tanks to keep themselves in political power, that will not last. And so we must take heart that Tibetans should always, as we have done for the last 50 or so years, continue to fight and hand over to our children, to our students, to continue the fight for the freedom of Tibet, for the independence of Tibet. Because we do not want to be ruled by China. We have no interest whatsoever to be ruled by foreign powers. China is a colonial power. It is sending millions of Chinese into Tibet and colonizing Tibet, making the Tibetan people a minority and marginalized completely. So therefore, this is not in the interest of Tibetan people. We must have independence. Without that, Tibet will not survive. Thank you very much, everyone. And I would like to thank also the Australian senators, Geese Watson and Senator. Thank you so much for coming here to support Tibet, because we need yourself more than ever. As you can see, we are in a terrible situation where the Chinese are using economic power and we Tibetans have no power at all. Your help, assistance and support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.